want to sit up here? You can sit. You can be part of the panel. Be part of the panel. You'll look official. Let's see. Randy. Come.
I know.
Come sit up front with me and look. So it looks like I have a panel. Yeah. Did you? Salaries. Come sit up front so it looks like I have a whole panel with me.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
I will do that.
Come sit up front so I have a whole panel. Turned out to be a marvelous thing. But you too, Dave. Come sit up front.
How did you know to come?
What?
How did Mr. Danford know to come?
Hello, dear. How did who?
Invitation.
Oh, it's probably Sammy. You want to sit up front?
If you want me up there,
Sure. I like to have a team. I like to have a team with me.
I'll go wherever you want me to.
Tell him about who might show up.
Fane?
No, he said she was
Oh,
showing
crazy.
up.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2.
Two more minutes. 2 more minutes. Minute and a half. Did you get something to eat?
Looks like you have a panel now.
Now it looks like I have a panel.
They've been having police officers come out now.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to move. See, if I was shorter, it'd be fine. Right here, this is perfect.
You know, it doesn't inspire.
Well, it's 1 minute to 6, and I always believe in modeling good behavior and starting on time, so I think we'll start 1 minute before, and that way anybody who comes after can feel like they're late. That's okay. I'd like to first introduce Mayor Myra, who is here somewhere, our neighbor from Palm Beach Coast. And Mayor Myra, before I introduce any of our Riviera Beach folks, has someone with her to speak about their dog or animal or what, dogs only. So if you would introduce your Palm Beach Shores gentleman, who is here somewhere. Raise your hand. Where'd he go? Oh, there he is.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you all. So I'm going to introduce Frank, who is a representative of our Property Owners Association. And I don't know, a lot of you come and walk down on our parkway, and you know that we are a very dog-friendly town. We love our dogs. I think I spend $740 a month on dog poop bags. So but it's all money well spent. Money well spent. So anyway, we decided to build on that, and I'd like to introduce Frank, who's going to tell you about our Dog Fest, which is happening next weekend.
Thank you, Mayor Myra. Just a quick note. I've got a couple of stand-up flyers over near the food with some of the details. I've also got, probably 50 or 75 save-the-date cards, so you're welcome to take one of those if you like. So, very quick overview. It's a dog festival. It's going to be a week from tomorrow, Saturday the 29th. It's going to take place on the walkway, the green walkway that goes right through the center of town. And it's going to be, you can't miss it. It's just going to be just south of the town hall between Tacoma and Claremont. We are going to have a shuttle bus because I know parking is an issue. So Mayor Myra has very graciously given us the beach parking lot. And the owner of the Buccaneer has given us the... Well, the Buccaneer who owns... They gave us the parking lot over at the intersection of Lake and Blue Heron, the former bank, as a parking lot. So we're going to have it well marked, and the Sailfish is going to have their shuttle running between 9:45 and 10:45 to get people there, and then between 1:30 and 2:30 to get people back, if they've parked their cars there. It's going to be a 3-act show. The first act, and this is all printed on the Save-A-Day cards. The first act is going to be by the Sheriff's Office K-9. They have a patrol dog demo, and they have a rescue dog demo. And then we're going to have a dog parade. You can register your dog, get in line. The first 50 dogs get a swag bag filled with goodies. And then we're going to take a break because there's 13 or 14 vendors that'll be present. 3 of whom are actual dog rescues. They're going to have dogs there in case anybody wants, to potentially give a home. And at about 1:30, we're going to have a photography presentation. There's going to be a very large silent auction table, and I'm just going to share one item because I think it's the #1 item on the silent auction. It's donated by the sheriff's office as well, and it's deputy for a day. And 4 people get to ride around with the deputy. They visit the crime lab, the fingerprint lab, one other lab. They meet the sheriff. They go out on the patrol boat, and they go out to lunch. And we think that that's going to be a big draw for the silent auction. So that's it. Won't take any more of your time. Thank you for letting me speak. Have a great meeting.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Mayor Myra. Now, I also see some other dignitaries in the room, and those would be representatives from COSI, which is our Community Officers Association of Singer Island. So I want to let Mike say hello.
Hello, Julie. Do I have to stand up?
Yes, you do.
This is going to be the meeting that we were going to have, you and Myra. And these are great meetings. They're valuable. It's an opportunity for everybody to hear what goes on in Riviera Beach, how it affects you. And I salute you for doing the program and bringing the mayor too. Wow.
And do we have anyone here from SECA? No. SECA is our Singer Island Civic Association, and I guess Mike is also on the... Next one standing up again. So we have a very full agenda this evening. Let me get my clicker here and make sure it works. And what I'd like to do first is do some introductions, and I'm going to pass the mic along from my right here all the way over. Mr. Jonathan Evans, our esteemed city manager, who will be first on the agenda, will be leaving us shortly after it begins and then coming back for Q&A. We're going to try to reserve all questions and answers until the end of our meeting because it's so packed with information and I don't want it to drag on too long, and that way Jonathan can get back here in time to answer all the questions that come up in your minds while you're sitting here. So Jonathan, I'll ask you to introduce yourself and then pass along the mic, and if you would tell who you are and what you plan to speak about this evening.
Jonathan Evans, city manager, and I plan to speak about whatever one of my bosses asks me to speak about and answer any questions that she tells me I have to answer.
Good evening. I'm Jim Boyce. I'm with PEB Capital, the ground lease holder for the Ocean Walk Mall. Plan to speak about potentially expanding the Ocean Walk Mall retail and potentially a hotel site there as well.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. The new chief, Nate Osgood of the city of Riviera Beach, and I'm excited to be starting this new endeavor in my life and working closely with all your town members in the cities as the residents of the city of Riviera Beach.
David Danford, Assistant Water Treatment Plant Superintendent, and here to answer any questions about any issues with the water.
Good evening. My name is Deirdre Jacobs, and I'm the Assistant City Manager with the City of Riviera Beach. I had come to speak on Utility Special District questions, but Mr. Danford is here now, so we'll be speaking collectively to address your issues.
Good evening, Randy Sherman. I'm the Finance Director for the city, and I will be talking about funding our fire department and potential expansions that they're looking at, and trying to find a way to meet the goals of the city manager.
Hello, everybody. I'm Officer Joe Hoffman. Most of you know me. I'm your Singer Island patrolman. I'll answer any questions you have for me. We got turtle season coming up soon, so that's going to be a big deal. But any questions, just please ask.
Thank you. You know, Officer Joe is one of our dedicated Singer Island Patrol people. We're so happy that we have someone dedicated to the island, and we never want that to change, Chief. So I'm going to pass the mic to Jonathan and ask him to address these topics. Of course, the Chief of Police, submerged lands, community values survey, the census, and the state of the city. A lot of stuff to talk about, but I know you can zip right through them.
Absolutely. Well, first, I do want to thank you all for being here this evening. This is actually Chief Osgood's first public meeting, so if we can give him a warm Riviera Beach welcome. And I'll tell you a story about Chief Osgood, and we haven't officially started working together, but I want to tell you how dedicated he is to our community. When he applied for the job, rumor has it that he started coming to the city and there were sightings of him throughout the community. He showed up 2 days early for a meeting that I had with him today. He was here on Tuesday for the meeting. But he is committed to providing exceptional law enforcement service, has all the academic credentials, has graduated from the Southern Police Institute, which is one of the top academies that you would go through for law enforcement executives. The second academy is the FBI Academy, so it's either the Southern Police Institute or the FBI Academy. He's graduated from the Southern Police Institute. Comes with over 30 years of law enforcement experience. When we were going through the selection process, I can tell you that we had 57 applicants that applied for the position of police chief. I had the task of narrowing it down to about 13. I was supposed to narrow it down to 10. I had a panel of staff that was supposed to narrow it down to 4. They narrowed it down to 6 because I guess I didn't do my job in narrowing it down. So they gave me 6 candidates. We brought 6 candidates to the city of Riviera Beach that had over collectively 200 to 300 years of law enforcement experience. Chief Osgood rose to the top when he met with the men and women of law enforcement. When you get a call from the police union that says he's a cop's cop, you know that you've selected the right person for the agency. So I'm certainly glad that he's on board. I know that he's excited to move forward with some of his initiatives, which is intelligent-led police work. We're going to let the data dictate where we put our officers. We're going to make sure that we're in the communities, we're out of vehicles, we're engaging the citizenry. And that one thing that he said to me today and has said throughout the time that we've had discussions is that we will make sure that we push every criminal element outside of our community. And if they think that they're going to come to Riviera Beach and commit crimes, they're sadly mistaken. And we're going to make sure that this community is safe and protected by the best and led by the best. So, Chief, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you. With regards to the submerged lands, there are certain things that I am unable to communicate specifically as it relates to that, as it may impact our legal strategies moving forward. However, there will be information that will be available for public consumption in a couple of days. Staff is making sure that they conduct their due diligence, cross all the T's, dot all the I's, and I'm assuming that once that information is distributed to the appropriate parties, it will make its way through the community and inform everybody as to what's going on. So that is going to be something that I think a lot of people have asked a lot of questions about, and staff has come to a conclusion on that, and our building official has opined on that. So you will definitely get the information here as quickly as we have it. The next item we have is the Community Values Survey. The City of Riviera Beach, for the first time, is putting forward a Community Values Survey. You can find it on our website. You can find it on social media. It's an intent for us to hear from the community what are the services and departments and the things that you value. The reason that we're asking that question is because the budget is a spending tool intended to accomplish the collective goals of the community, and the policymakers need the feedback from the community in order to allocate resources accordingly. I can tell you that I've had the opportunity to take a look at some of the survey results, and Dr. Botel's district is leading all the other districts. So the folks that have participated in the survey, thank you. Continue to participate in the survey, because as we get ready to go into the State of the City address and then the budget sessions here that will start probably in the next 60 days, that information is critically important as we start setting priorities and funding priorities and the things that you want to see us emphasize the most on and the things that you would like to see us improve or set aside and focus on the things that we need to focus on. The real power in government is derived by the public's agreement to be governed, and so we need to have your input and feedback. Once we complete the survey, we are going to distribute it out via our social media channels as well as our website, so you'll be able to see the data that's provided. All the information is anonymous, so you don't have to worry about You know, is the city going to sell my information or what have you, or somebody got a public records request, you know, the information? They can, but there's no identification material unless you choose to put your email address or those types of things in it. So it's very important that we get community input and feedback on the community value survey. Moving on to the census. The census is right around the corner. You should start receiving information in your mailboxes, I believe March 12th through the 20th. The city will also be distributing some information concerning the census. It is so important that we get participation in the census. The city of Riviera Beach received over the last 10 years about close to $2 million in community development block grant fund. That is funds directly from the federal government to the county and then to the city of Riviera Beach. We can utilize that for roadway projects in our community. The city of Riviera Beach historically has been an undercounted community, so we don't get much participation. There is going to be approximately $4 trillion that will be appropriated associated with a 10-year period as the census comes out. $25.5 billion of the state's budget is derived from federal monies for food stamps and school assistance programs and those. So the participation in the census is critically important. We will be posting information as what the questions will be. We will also put out information as to when you can anticipate them coming to your house if you don't respond. They are allowing for you to do it online. This is the first time that they are rolling out that. The information is encrypted and protected, so you don't have anything to worry, quote unquote. You don't have anything to worry with regards to that. They're also going to be allowing for you to do it via mail or phone calls, but there's other mechanisms, and then invariably if you don't respond, then they're going to send people to your house to come chat with you for a little bit. But we want to get folks participating in the census as it's a critically important element for our community, and it's required by the Constitution. We need to find out how we can plan for future schools and infrastructure in our community, so please take the time and energy into completing the survey and making sure everyone in your home is counted. If you get the census information while you are here in the city of Riviera Beach, please fill it out here in the city of Riviera Beach. I know some of you live other places throughout the year. Where you fill it out and where it's sent in, that's where it's counted. So I know you love your other places very much, but we love you so much more here if you just say that you reside here and send that information in. So I will be back to assist the Assistant City Manager and Mr. Danford on the water treatment plan and the progress that we're making as a result of the hard work that staff has put in. And I will be answering most questions that I can answer. I have to run to another meeting, but I will turn the microphone over to Chief Osgood because I think it's important to hear from him briefly, and then I've got to take him with me as well. But I want to thank you for listening to my brief spiel, and then I'll turn it over to the new Chief of Police.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. First of all, I want to say thank you once again for welcoming me to your community outing. First line, I'd like to say, you know, law enforcement, we're considered the first line of defense, that we see things and we have to jump on it, but really it's you guys. I want to remind you all to get into the see something, say something. I'm sure you're aware of it. If you see anything that looks out of place, that may be a little suspicious, go ahead and put the call into the non-emergency line and let us know what you see, a car or suspicious person or activities in your communities. Let us know about it. Also, sometimes we get into the habit of thinking we as being law enforcement, but it's not police related, so don't bother us with that. No such thing. If you see something that's just not right, let us know about it because it might have an impact on something in your community that we can look into and find out why is that van sitting on the side of the street for so long, 3 days unoccupied. You may be related to something. So again, see something, say something has a lot more to do with just seeing crime. You may see something that's out of place, out of line, that's not right. Just let us know about it. I'm kind of a person that I like to say I'm 24/7. I like to be aware of things. I want to be notified of anything that's wrong. So if, again, see something, say something's going to have something to do with it, you report it to the police officer in your community, it comes up the chain, we're going to take a look at it, we're going to respond to it. And again, I'm going to be in these kind of community events quite often. I'm going to be walking around to everybody's community, getting to know everybody. You're going to see a lot more, not just me, of the command staff and other police officers. Any questions of me, real quick? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you very much. Don't forget to come back to us. I am going to rearrange the agenda slightly because Mr. Sherman also has other obligations. So I'm going to ask him to speak first about the fire assessment. Mr. Sherman.
I need the projectors. Good evening again. As I said, I'm going to talk about our fire department, and I'm not going to give it all the justice it deserves because, unfortunately, the chief's not here. He could tell us a lot more. But one of the things we did, I want to say was, oh, can I do that from up there? Okay, good. That'll be fine. We had a meeting in this very room back in December, and the fire department presented a plan. Hang on. And if you can't tell from Mr. Evans' comments, he goes at 180 miles an hour. He's a big vision guy, and he only wants the best. So he actually went to the fire department and said, listen, we got some issues in the fire department. Give me, if we were going to have the optimal, top of the line, the fire department the community really deserves, what is it going to take? And they walked in and said, well, we probably need about 30 or 40 more firefighters on our staff. And I almost had a stroke that day. So really what we want to talk about, one thing that's good about the fire department is I think the state has realized, and this has been around for a long time, that sometimes you need some alternative financing mechanisms. If you think about the fire department, it really shouldn't be based on property values. It really shouldn't be funded necessarily 100% by property taxes. So they allow for what they call the fire assessment fee. And what the fire assessment fee does is it looks at the service calls that the fire department has, it looks at who's using those service calls, and it tries to come up with a equitable fee structure to apply, citywide. It's still applied citywide. It's not like an EMS ambulance call where only the person who gets the ride in the back has to pay for it. But it does allow you to assess a fee for fire services. So again, this is not for EMS. This is for fire services. And now the city did look at this back in 2011, and I don't know why I wasn't here in 2011. I don't know why it got shot down at that point. At this point, I was actually in West Palm Beach, and I think we adopted in West Palm Beach in 2008 or 9 or something like that. So I actually just pulled out these slides, and I'll run through it real quick. What we really like about the fire assessment fee, one, it's not based on your property values. This is not a wealth tax. And what it really does is it provides equity. All residential units pay the same thing. Doesn't matter whether it's a $200,000 property or a $25,000 property. When it's burning, it costs the same to try to put that fire out. So I'm going to run through this real quick so you take a look at it. And again, the statutes are very strict. They're very clear on how you have to go through and apportion it. I won't read everything that's up here on the slide, but they've laid out the process. There's a few companies in the state that actually come in and do these studies. We don't do them internally. And they have to go through, there's different ways that they look at it to come up and apportion the services that the fire department provides. Again, there's case law. It's all been defended. As long as it's fair and reasonable, we're good to go. There are a number of assessment tools that they do use. Again, they look at the benefit, not the value, okay? They look at any dedicated revenues. Those things all get subtracted off from the price, of the fees and everything. And it actually comes down to, one of the things we like here, is it's an annual decision. If you do it this year, doesn't mean you have to do it next year, okay? But again, I will tell you, if you look at like our property tax rates here in the city and compare them to somebody like Boca, our rates are a lot higher because Boca has a $300 per unit fire assessment fee that we don't have. So when you try to, make these things fair and comparative, you got to take all of those issues into consideration. Again, it goes back, they look at historical demand, they're going to look at calls, they're going to look at service, they're going to look at the pre's. And again, it does not count the EMS portion, just the fire portion. Again, they go through a number of things. They'll go through and do this evaluation. Let me run through this. Kind of already hit on that. They will break it down individually. So really what they do is they'll come up with a fee for the residential rates, and then based on that, they then come up with the fees on commercial and industrial property. So again, it's taking that cost and it's spreading it out a little bit differently than we currently spread it out with property values. I know you probably can't see that, but again, they'll go through a number of calculations, come up with a pro forma budget, and come up with a fee. Now the beauty of this is, let me get to here. So the beauty of this is, again, they take all of the costs, they allocate it out, and then based on the number of units, the amount of square footage, they'll actually come up with some rates. Now the interesting thing is, you see the institutional line down there. We do have the ability to provide exemptions. So if you want to not charge tax exempt properties, you don't charge governments, you don't want to charge churches, you can come up and deduct all of those items out of there. This again goes back to the exemptions. This again goes back to 2011. So when they did this in 2011, they came up with a full value rate per residential units of $265. Okay, that would have raised $6.7 million per year after subtracting out $800,000 for institutional and government units. If they had done this back in 2011 and just kept this as a flat amount, think what the fire department could have done with $70 million over the last 10 years, okay? Again, we're trying to build up their equipment, we're trying to build up their staff, we're trying to build up new firehouses. This $70 million is lost, but this is the concept of the fire assessment fee. Now, if you use these dollars for operations, the law says is I got to back it out and I have to subtract it out of the property tax rates. So if I take that $7 million or $6.7 million and back that out of the property tax rates, property taxes go down about 15%. Okay, so you put in the fee, reduce the property taxes, but that's a break-even situation. If you want to use the fee to build fire stations, you want to buy rolling stock, fire apparatus, that's over and above. The property tax rates would not go down. Or again, you can do any combination. Now when they did this, this was $265 full rate, but you don't have to do a full rate assessment. Again, when we did this in West Palm Beach, I do not remember what the full rate was, but we only did $25 for a residential unit, and we only applied it to capital. West Palm Beach was no different than Riviera Beach. Recession, they didn't have new apparatus, they needed new firehouses, so we put it in exclusively for capital. Now, I'll tell you today, it's $100, and they do use part of it for operations. But if you've ever been out to Station 5 in West Palm Beach, it's the most beautiful fire station you're probably going to see in the area. But that's how they funded it. They funded it through the fire assessment fee. So again, back in 2011, they looked at this. Here's that, they could do a 25% assessment. It was $67 on the average resident, on a residential home. Now I'll tell you, there are some homes in Riviera Beach that are paying less than $200 for their property taxes. So when you do this and you compare it and again say, okay, so I'm going to raise 1.6 million. Okay, so my taxes are going to go down, 6%, 7%, and then I got to pay a $67 assessment. To me, it seems like it's a pretty good trade-off, especially from the residential. But again, where it gets made up is in the commercial and industrial, who again, when you think of some of those properties out there, they don't have a lot of value, but if they catch on fire, they're going to cost a lot of money to handle. So that's really what the fire assessment fee process is. Again, it takes the property taxes and shifts it into more of a fee-based system. And then, again, with the manager's vision, it's an alternative way to provide funding for that. Okay?
For this, we'll take questions because Mr. Chairman has to leave. He was afraid I would say that.
That's fine. Yeah. It is, absolutely. You're good? All right, well, we've got a one vote. Yes.
Are condos given the same fee as private homes?
It's actually a reduced fee. It's a percentage. It's a percentage base.
Test.
And that would obviously be determined what that percentage is, but I can't say it's 80%, but it would be an adjusted rate. Yes. The question was, how do they determine what the capital expenditures are?
Meaning you're going to get $7 million
Yeah.
in that example. Who determines how that $7 million in capital expenditure?
Well, I'll tell you what the process to get this passed, okay, is everyone has to get a mailing, there has to be a public hearing, and you actually make that as part of the presentation. So you'd come in and say, okay, I need to, rebuild, the station 86, is that what we gave out here? 86, and that's a $6 million, replacement station. Okay, that's where that money's going. And every year you're presenting a budget that's, going to use those dollars. Questions? No more? Yep. Yes. No, what, again, oh, I'm sorry. I'll let her ask the question. I'll move.
Thanks. Sorry, I was just not sure why we were talking about this. I didn't know if it was incremental, but we're talking about fees that are incremental to our current property taxes, and that's why we're addressing it here, or if this is kind of a slice of the budget and we're saying this is how we'd like to allocate the fees that we're already collecting from taxes for fire.
So this is, we're looking for, there's a lot of pressure on property taxes. Our millage rate is almost 8.5 mils. Our cap is 10. You don't have a lot of place to go. The percentage of the budget that's being paid from property taxes grows every year because, and I'll tell you, for our 2020 budget, our total budget went up less than total property taxes increased. So property taxes went up, our non-property tax revenues actually went down. So we understand that there's pressure on that, and we don't want to put additional pressure on that. But again, the manager's vision is getting you the best fire, department that he possibly can. So we're looking for alternative methods to do that. We're budgeting a lot of money for the new fire apparatus and breathing apparatus and chest compressors and all these other items that we're spending capital money on, but we're using the property taxes to do that when we don't necessarily have to do that. So again, if we were looking to add 20, 30, 40 new positions, so we can make sure that there's 3 people on every truck, and make sure that you got backup vehicles, and making sure we still maintain 4 stations. We have to find some alternative methods to fund that. So that's really why we're looking at this. Again, it's just being tossed around at this point because we're not hiring 40 people tomorrow. But we know we do need 4 new fire stations. So that's where we are. I think our vehicles are in good shape for a while. But again, if the manager wants to grow this department to get better coverage and provide better service, we're going to have to try to find some additional funds. So this is just an option that we're looking at this time. All right, let me go over here first. Yeah.
If the city decides that this is the route they want to go, is this a city council vote approval, or is this a voter approval?
It's a council vote. It's a council vote, but it's after, those are our public hearings. Everybody gets notified and you come in. And again, every year they have to take that vote to re-vote it. And if they want to change it, so let's say they say, okay, we're going to do $100 or a residential unit. If they want to change that to $150, they got to go through the process all over again, to public hearings and all that, all over again.
The question is, does the city collect impact fees for fire on new developments?
We do, but with the slowdown in development, we don't bring in a lot. The water treatment plant collects impact fees, and again, we collect them for fire and police and parks and library, but yes. But it doesn't fund a whole heck of a lot. Yes?
What is the minimum?
My first answer will be a guess. My second answer, I don't even have any idea what that count is. We can certainly get it for you. I believe they're around like 18 per rotation is what they're, yeah, I think that's what they're about. And again, there's some units that roll out with only 2 on a truck, and they really should have 3 or 4 sometimes on some of those vehicles. Because you think about when they go out, they always have to have a driver, and that just doesn't leave a lot of bodies to do some other things. So, but as far as number of fires, offhand I just don't know that. Yeah.
Property taxes. When you did your initial presentation, it sounded like there was some sort of pullback on property taxes if we do this, but then just a moment ago you were talking about how you needed to allocate property taxes elsewhere, and that's why we needed this, so I just wanted some clarification on that.
Okay, so the statute pretty much says that if you put in the fire assessment fee and all it's doing is paying for what you currently have, you have to take it back out of property taxes, okay? If you want to increase, okay, and again, put it towards capital and those things that you're not currently funding, then it can be an add-on. So it could be some combination of the two. So, maybe you raise $4 million and property taxes go down $2 million, but, you can balance that. But you have to justify it.
Anything else? Great, okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Sherman. We know you have to get going. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll give you that. I don't know who's next.
I want to thank everybody for hanging in here with us. The air conditioning in this building apparently is not equipped to deal with the number of people we have here this evening. So I have my trusty fan, and I hope some of you ladies have brought yours because it's not comfortable here, I will admit. So we'll try to get through this agenda as quickly as we can. And matter of fact, I'm going to rearrange it yet again and jump to the projects that we have. Whoops. Okay, real estate. And I am going to start with the fact that there's no news on the Yacht Club. I see Chip back there. No news from your perspective, right, Chip? Lubeck is a realtor in town. Any other realtors in town? Susan. Susan, no news from you on the yacht club, right? Nobody seems to know what's going to happen with the yacht club. The person who purchased it most recently spent $13 million on it, and some people say he's just going to hold on to it for the near future anyway. So nothing on that. Everybody knows what I'm talking about, the yacht club. Marie, sorry. Okay, wait, let me give you this mic. Oh. Marie says, for the record, if you want to buy it, it's for sale. Okay, they're going to put a quality project on it, and they'll keep all of us informed. Well, as I said, no news. Where is it? Okay, that's what I wondered. As you come over the bridge on the right-hand side, it used to be, it was an old yacht club, and it came down because of a couple of hurricanes several years ago. So it's a vacant property now. I tried to get a decent picture of it. That's from the side. That's from the road that comes out. Is it Park? It comes out there. And it's basically a vacant lot right now. So. Yes, we're putting a new mural on. It's not graffiti. It's a legitimate mural. I hope it's going to be beautiful when she's done. We had several community meetings about the mural, and so people had a lot of input on it, and I think it's going to be lovely as part of our mural, part of our CRA project with the murals. The next project, why is this not? Do I need to be pointing it somehow different? You know what? Good old, okay. The old Blue Motel. Oh, yeah, thank you. Oh, a good segue. Thank you, Miss Dixon. Across the street from the old yacht club will be, which is property that's being leased to us for, I think, $1 a year, will be the community garden. And if you haven't heard about that, there will be a meeting coming up on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, February 25th, right here in hopefully a cooler space, because there won't be that many people. Oh, it would be lovely if this many people showed up, but I hesitate to suggest that might happen. I'm sorry, JB. But we hope to have a good turnout. Maybe not this many. At 6 o'clock from 6 to 7 right here. That's Tuesday, February 25th. An updated presentation, volunteer recruitment for the Singer Island Community Garden. And that will be across the street from the Yacht Club as you're coming. After you go across the bridge, the Yacht Club is on the right. And the next block over, that will be our community garden. And it will be a raised bed garden primarily because the land is not ours. So we want to be able to move it when the land no longer is available to us. So the old Blue Motel is what I call it. This is the entire block. Now, I could probably point to it from here. It's basically across the street that way. Do you know what? Does everybody here know what I mean when I say the old Blue Motel? Okay. So the gentleman who owns that owns the entire block now, with the exception of Captain Jack's. He intends now, his intention at this moment, is to make it entirely as a drug treatment block, the whole block. However, I have not been sleeping on this one, and I have been in constant communication with him, and he has now agreed to put about $20,000 into the necessary paperwork and so on to develop it as beautiful retail on the bottom, condos on top, and maybe a restaurant on the top of that, if the city gives him the height he needs. So we're trading off the potential of having a whole block as drug treatment center, facility for the whole block, or 6 stories, 8 stories. I'm not even sure what he wants at this point. But in my estimation, I think it's a pretty good trade-off, given that, you know, we know what happens with these drug treatment blocks. It's just not a pretty picture. They end up hanging out outside. As much as we want people to get help, you know, these people are ADA covered. They're handicapped in many ways. We want them to get help, but not the whole block and not right on our main thoroughfare. So we're hopeful that he will be able to persuade the Planning and Zoning Board that his plans are viable and that it will be still lovely, although it will be a little bit more dense than we're used to here. So that's that project. The next project I want to tell you about is the Sands Motel. There it is in all its glory. If you're watching, Fred, I'm here. Okay, so this is the property that Mr. Valari, I think I could use my fan here as a pointer. This property right here, this is the Sands. This is the little pocket park that used to be Max and Eddie's restaurant, okay? And then this is what Mr. Valari has, including a back piece there. And he has this little parking lot across the street. Does everybody know where the Sands is? Okay. So this is what is being projected for there. This particular drawing is 30 stories. Again, this will have to go through all of the same hoops that anyone developing on the island will have to go through. It will have to go through planning and zoning. In this case, it will necessitate many more steps because there will be zoning issues. There will be all kinds of issues. But I wanted to let you see what's being asked, so you will be aware. So I'm not. That would be a variance, right? Oh yeah, this will be it's not zoned for that now. This will absolutely be a variance. That's what it looks like from one side. Is it a hotel? That's what it looks like from the bridge, from about the bridge. It will be, I believe they're planning it to be part hotel, part condo, part convention center, and so on. Just so you're aware, okay? This is not parking. Oh yeah, and a much needed. Thank you, JB. And a much needed. We know we need parking at the Ocean Mall, but this gentleman here, Mr. Boyce, is going to tell you a little bit more about his project. But I wanted you to be aware. Yeah, there it is. Residential on the top, parking on the bottom, with a hotel there, and a restaurant on top. So, so that you're aware. Now we go to Mr. Boyce, and I will hand the mic to him, and he's going to tell you a little bit about the Ocean Walk Mall development.
Thank you very much, Dr. Botel. Thank you all for being here. Again, my name is Jim Boyce. I work for PEB Capital. They're a developer based out of Boca. PEB has been in the retail business since the early 1970s, so for 50 years throughout South Florida, they've developed multiple retail centers. In 2017, and I'll keep this brief, but in 2017, PEB acquired the Ocean Mall site. And if anybody remembers it back in 2017, it was about 50% occupied. It's currently just under 100% occupied. In fact, in the next few weeks, we hope to be at 100% occupancy. What that means to us is there's a clear demand for two things: additional retail, but also in our market studies, we actually have hotels in a few areas across the state. And our market studies shows a strong demand for market rate hotel in Riviera Beach, Singer Island. So PEB actually having the ground lease for the retail, there was, I do not remember when Dan Catafumo actually got the original hotel lease, but there was an original plan for a hotel. That ground lease area is currently being parked on by the retail ground lease. So what we're looking to do is expand the retail, approximately 10 to 12,000 additional retail square feet. But to accommodate that, and as you're all aware, you'd have to address the parking. So to justify an actual parking garage there, you would have to have a hotel. You place a hotel, additional retail, you have another 300 parking spaces. There are two, of course, I'm sure when people think parking garage, they also think, here's this big structure, but there are a lot of parking garages now you drive by and you would have no idea it was a parking garage. In fact, the style of the garage, the architecture, you wouldn't know it unless you drove by it and actually drove into it. So there are two main obstacles right now. One, the current Ocean Walk Mall site is on a 50-year ground lease. I believe there's approximately 36 to 37 years left on that lease. Development of this size will cost approximately $20 million. So based upon there being 36 years left on a ground lease, developer, while it's an attractive site, while it's a great bonus for the entire city, and I do believe it'll attract people not from Riviera Beach, but from all over Palm Beach County, the ground lease would have to be extended. In order to extend the ground lease, there's a current charter that limits the ground lease for 50 years. So with 36 years left, a developer wouldn't typically go and spend $20 million. I strongly believe that you're either moving forward or you're moving backwards. So a developer, me being working for developers for the last 20 years, what that does is leave Riviera Beach, not just on this parcel, but on all other ground lease parcels, in an opportunity or an unusual predicament where a developer is not going to year 40 to 50 go spend money. So like I said, you're either moving forward or you're moving backwards. So you have a developer that's got a 50-year track record, proven successful, proven stable, looking to expand the Ocean Walk Mall. So the two obstacles, and we'd be looking for, and I believe it would be on a voter ballot, possibly August, possibly November, extending a ground lease, another 50 years, having the opportunity for the city council, the citizens to vote on extending, or the opportunity to extend the ground lease for 50 additional years. There's also written into the charter a height limit of 5 stories on Singer Island on ground lease. Now, the height limit wouldn't directly impact this project unless you wanted additional parking. The current plan, the way it's currently designed, is there are no variances. There's no need for variances. But if the city did want additional parking via structured parking garage, you would have to go up at least 1 more story, possibly 2. So right now, the plan is 3 stories of leveled parking, or 3 stories of structured parking, 3 levels of parking, and a 2-story, 3-story hotel on top of that, 110, 120 keys. So that's where we stand right now. Additionally, to meet some of the parking requirements, like I said, 110 to 120 keys, there'd also be some retail liner. And this would help not just meet, but exceed the current parking requirement for that, as well as provide an additional, potentially 100 parking spaces. You can see by the architecture, it matches the existing Ocean Walk Mall. And I believe it'd really be a great opportunity for everyone involved. In the city, there's additional tax revenue, there's additional fire department money for impact fees. And I believe that's about everything right now where we're at.
I know I said I wouldn't take questions, but he may have to go as well.
I just don't, when you're talking about the ground lease, does that basically mean that they're allowed to lease that ground for free from the city for that amount of time, or how does that work?
So currently, it's on a fee rate. Flat fee is paid annually to the city of Riviera Beach. I believe it's about $70,000.
Okay. Really low.
And I believe, well, we acquired it in 2017. I don't remember when it was. Like I said, it's 13 years ago. So I'm not sure how it was actually derived, how that number was
So when
derived.
you're asking for the extension, are you asking for the extension under that same rate?
I have not been jumped off the cabbage patch and into
Well,
that.
no, well, that's what they're
I
asking
know,
for.
I'm teasing.
Yeah.
I'm teasing. We would never, and I think I can speak for the rest of council, one of the things that I campaigned on was trying to do something about the amount of money that the city obtains by virtue of that ground lease. And I think that, again, this is a matter for negotiation. We probably won't be discussing it in this forum right now tonight, but yes, absolutely, absolutely, we'll be negotiating
Well,
that.
I think this is a partnership. I think both parties need to be happy for this to go forward. Like, so it's not just the city, it's the developer and the city work together. Any negotiation you have where one person is taking advantage of it, I don't think that's a good relationship. So I hope that answers your question.
Sir, listen, on that ground lease, it was like $50,000 when it was passed originally, all right? And I do know that a lot of people are very upset about that because, I mean, it's a very valuable property. We like it, we love it. I don't have any problem with what you're proposing, but it's got to be fair and equitable to the city also. In other words, that lease cannot stay the same, dollar-wise.
I don't disagree with you. And the way to make it equitable is there's a current lease in place, it's a contract, that says this is the rate. For the next 37 years, this is the rate. The way to adjust that is to expand the ground lease, to extend the ground lease, to expand the area, include other areas. Otherwise, it is what it is. for
Okay,
37 more
so
years.
suffice it to say, we're going to be negotiating that. Does anyone have a question? Do you have a question about it? Yeah, back here.
Just very simply, the placement of that in relationship east, west, north, south of what's already there at the Ocean Mall, if you could just kind of place that for us.
So my understanding is that when you go into the Ocean Walk Mall now, from about the middle, where the
This is the main entrance, right?
yeah, the main entrance. You know, if you're coming into the parking lot, the roads are back here. The ocean is there, am I right?
Yes.
The ocean is over here.
I think if you go back a couple slides, it actually shows
The orientation. Whoops, sorry. So these are the existing stores. Yes?
Yes, yes.
This is the way in, you know? You're
Correct.
coming into and this is where the tall structure is, and this
That's
is where the new
hotel,
retails are.
New retail, and this would be the structured parking garage.
Across from Two Drunken Goats. Okay, any other questions? Questions?
I want to try to be clear about this. We're talking about two different structures. One is a structure for the mall, which has parking and retail, and then one is this very tall hotel? Because we saw two different renderings.
What I talked about earlier was the Sands project. That's nothing, that has nothing to do with this.
So it is two different
Yes,
things.
two projects, two completely different
Okay.
projects.
So the community needs to be involved with the Ocean Mall project in terms of the balloting and the height.
Well, the community needs to be involved with everything, frankly.
But the Sands Hotel project, does that need community involvement?
Absolutely. Anything we do on the island, everything we do needs public hearings, needs to go through a process, a very lengthy process in that case. Yes, absolutely. All right, I'm just going to take two more because three more. 1, 2, 3, and that's it because then we're going to move on.
I'm just curious about where the Sands Motel would be in relation to this schematic and.
The Sands would be, right. Let's see, can I go, yeah, let me go this way. Yeah, down, actually right down here. Back down here, okay? Okay, now 2 and then 3, or vice versa, 3 and then 2. Is the plan to build on the parking lot?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, that's the plan.
On a project this large, do you guys consider the impact traffic in the rather contained area we have on the island?
Of course.
I mean, it's going to have a heck of an impact.
It's part of the site plan approval process. They have to do a traffic concurrency statement, a traffic study.
So what typically happens in a case like this?
I don't know that I understand the question. As far as the
Yeah, I
traffic study, they
understand
do a
that.
traffic study based upon the trips over the bridge. They put
Okay.
out actual.
Just concerned about the traffic.
That's absolutely something that, now all right, last one, and I swear that's the last one.
I just want to piggyback on that gentleman. I came in here, there was a 2-mile backup from the bridge passing all across Church. People trying to get off the island, either go to dinner or wherever they're going. How can we accommodate more vehicles as we already have now? It's unbearable because we get stuck like that.
That-
And you're talking about a Sands Hotel? How many rooms in a hotel?
We were looking at approximately to 100 and 120 keys.
Another 120 cars.
Right. So I wanted you to know what was out there, and now you know. And there will be lots, believe me, lots of opportunity on all these projects for public input and conversations with, whoops, I'm going the wrong way, conversations about these projects before they happen. Now, we are also waiting for Mr. John Sprague to arrive, and he will be here shortly. So now I'm going to go back to the water. Do you have a presentation to do? Do you have a okay. Where am I? So, Deirdre Jacobs, who is the Assistant City Manager, will speak to us about the new water plant.
I don't know if it's that. Yeah, I will. Good evening again. My name is Deirdre Jacobs, and I'm the Assistant City Manager with the City of Riviera Beach. At this particular time, maybe over the last few months, we haven't had an executive director for our utility special district. So I've stood in that capacity with regards to the staff that is already there that's working with us. We do have tons of experience in terms of years of persons that have been there and have actually worked in the plant facilities. So we're competent along with our staff that's there, even though the absence of the executive director does exist, along with our staff and the consultants that we work with on a regular basis. We're in the process of doing everything that we can to make sure that the product that we deliver, especially the water in particular, the drinking water, that it is safe and for you to use. There have been a series of consent order items that we were dealing with since 2016. And up until this point, I think there were a total of maybe 76 or 73, okay, about 76 items, and of those 76 items, we've been able to comply with over half of them. The remainder ones, we're in the process of handling those as well. We met with the Department of Health just about a week ago, so we're looking for them to come out at any given time and to meet with us so that we can also allow them to visit our plant facilities and be able to physically determine as to whether or not we've actually, in fact, complied with all of those particular issues. What we've done is Mr. Evans has been back to the city, I think it's been maybe about 7 months. We pulled the numbers for this evening's meeting, and we spent about $1 million a month since he's been here on improvement activities. So we want you to know that we are working diligently. We're cognizant of the issues that deal with our water supply. We know that the Utility Special District, in our minds, is the most important agency at the city because our product actually deals with life. So along with the improvements that we've made, we've also gone as far as to follow the direction and the vision of our council, and we're in the process of planning for a new water treatment plant in itself. We're thinking that hopefully in the next 5 years, we'll actually be able to realize a new water treatment plant facility. And the biggest thing that we've done so far is in the last month, we've actually went and acquired new land so that we can begin the process to work with our contracted staff so that we can put measures in place to actually start a new water treatment plant. So, thank you. If you have any specific questions, Mr. Danford is here. He's been with the Utility Special District, I think 30 years, and he's our chief operator over at the plant. If you have any specific questions that you want to ask, Mr. Danford is here. I'm here as well, and Mr. Evans is expected to return any minute now.
I wanted to say a few things. Sammy, my legislative aide, I neglected to introduce him earlier. Stand up, Sammy. Let everybody give you a round of applause. Sammy bought us dinner tonight, so thank you. Sammy and I were in a conference a few months ago. We went to San Antonio, Texas. It was a League of Cities conference, and we actually visited a water treatment plant very, very similar to the one that we're going to put here. And one of the benefits of this type of technology, anybody here know about water treatment technology? Or okay, well, good. You can't tell me if I'm saying something wrong. It's going to be, it's a different kind, oh, Dave could explain it. Yeah, it's a very different kind of technology than what we have now. We have a lime softening technology now, which is very antiquated. It was probably from the 60s, 70s. Now they have things where you can go down so deep that you're actually taking brackish water, not from the superficial well, not from the superficial, as I'm learning, not from the superficial well, but from the Floridian well. Say it again. Floridan level. So you're digging down so deep, but you're bringing up this brackish water and treating it to the point that it's just absolutely the purest thing you can imagine. Let's have Dave now, the real expert, explain that.
Okay, the type of water treatment we have right now is a lime softening treatment, and that's a chemical reaction. You use chemicals to clean the water. With the new treatment plant, it'll be a physical, so we wouldn't have as much chemicals in the water for the treatment, and it does a very good job. Most new water plants are built this way. So. Yes.
The water currently is very hard. It's got a lot of chemicals.
Yes.
Minerals, I guess.
Yes, and minerals.
So
in
with
it.
this new system, would that be different?
That it'll be less minerals, and it'll be a better treatment process. Yes, much better. Mm-hmm. And it would taste better, yes. It would be clearer. Right now, we know we got some issues with some cloudiness and some color in the water. And we got some construction going on at the treatment plant right now. But with this new treatment plant, it would be very nice. We'll be proud of it, yes.
Excuse me, how about reverse osmosis process?
Yeah. Reverse osmosis, what it is it's a spiral wound, basically a filter, and the water is forced through this filtering process at a high rate, a high pressure. And then that removes all the sediments and everything that's in the water, the color, and it just forces, and you got pretty much pure water on the downstream side.
Excuse me. Are we going to use that in the new system?
It's not yet determined. Our engineers will make a decision. Yeah. Yes, we
and do you inform everyone if there's a
our
problem?
results
The
are.
question was, do you regularly check that the water is safe, and do you inform people?
We test for about 40 samples every month. We send them to our lab, and they test it to make sure it's safe, and we post those results on the website. Yes.
So just a question about the minerals in the water, I guess. I actually had to call a water softening company to come in and see what I could do about having the water treated in my condo. They want about $3,000 to add a filter to my water coming into the condo. I'm constantly fighting the hard water stains and all that gump in my dishwasher.
Yes.
Does all that get eliminated?
Yes, it will.
And when? Yeah, when is the new plant coming?
We just had a presentation on this, so I can tell you what I learned, yesterday? Was it yesterday? It was last night.
Last night.
The initial phases of this will take about a year and a half. And the initial phase, what we have to do is actually go out and determine where our water is coming from. We're limited in the amount of water we can take from the aquifer, the surficial. I want to say superficial, but superficial is what I want to say. The surficial aquifer, we're limited by the Water Authority, the Palm Beach, what's the name of the Water Authority?
South Florida Water Management
South Florida Water Management District, that's it. We're limited in the amount of water we can take, so we have to negotiate that, but we also have to figure out how much water we can take if we drill deep. So that's part of that year and a half. And depending on which method we choose, whether we choose to do everything on our own, I mean, soup to nuts, the whole thing is done by the city, or we have a continuum of options. The most, as I'm picturing it on the right-hand side, the left-hand side being the most city involvement, the right-hand side being practically done by an outside agency where they actually end up, I think I killed the mic, they actually end up running the place. We have to make decisions about, decisions about how to do that, whether we're going to have the city do it from soup to nuts, from design and everything, or move along that continuum. In any case, those decisions will compress the time. The most amount of time that it will take will be 6 years, and the least is probably about 4 years. So
we should get the filter then.
So
Might as well get the filter. It's a 10-year project.
If it's going to be 6 years and you got to live with hard water and it's impacting the way you feel I filter all my water in my house that I drink. I don't filter my bathing water or anything. And I live in a condo, which has fairly new plumbing because our condo, the Tiara, was destroyed in Francis and Jean, so it's fairly new. I don't filter anything other than my drinking water, and I use a zero water filter, and I don't, and I'm fine.
But you know what I've learned since I've been working over at Utility District that
we might have crashed the microphones. Hello?
I was saying that what I've learned since I've been working at the Utility District is a lot of the issues, and I'm not trying to take away from what we have over there because we do have challenges, but a lot of the issues when we actually go out, because we'll come out to your units and look at your water and assess what your issues are, they've been the pipes that run through your units that have a big effect on the hardness as well. So the aging of the infrastructure of your individual units might have an effect on the hardness.
And what would we do though? If it's the pipes going into the units, what's the advice? What would we do? Just get a filter then? Because it's all rusted. I mean, you're not going to change the pipes of the condos, right? I mean, that's got to be a city issue too, because the water's going into the pipe to corrode it. So that means the city maybe should subsidize part of the filter we want to order. Good question. Let her answer. Let her answer.
Walter, do we have a different mic? Did we fry our mics by what we just? We're okay. We're okay. Oh, good. Yeah.
Mr. Danford?
Let this gentleman finish asking, and then.
No, he was asking me about the pipes, and I was asking Mr. Danford if that is something that we would consider. I've never heard that we wouldn't go out and assess each individual. We go out individually. We've never said no to anybody that has had those particular issues. Now, when it comes to, I'm sorry? When it comes to what's determined with regards to the findings, I can't tell you if the city would take on that particular cost, because it would just be too arbitrary at this point in time. Yeah, I understand.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I just have a quick question, actually two of them. I heard a couple of months ago there was an issue with the water pressure in the north, and I was wondering, with Amrit coming online, 5,000 North Ocean coming online, is there going to be a problem with the pressure? No. And then the second question is, I used to be in Fort Lauderdale before I moved up here a couple of years ago. You know, the infrastructure in Fort Lauderdale going downhill, these pipes here, all the sewer lines and everything, over 80 years old. Are there any plans in the work to start replacing?
I'm going to ask Mr. Evans to answer that, because we just got a grant to begin to do some of that. So
but that
here
grant,
we go.
We just received a grant from the Department of Economic Opportunity through the state of Florida. It was a competitive grant, so we're really proud that we were able to get that grant, because that's not something that we normally do, which is go out and solicit grant opportunities. But those funds are already dedicated to our aerial crossings.
Okay, grant for what? For redoing these infrastructure?
The aerial crossing right now, and that's on another part of the community. The areas that specific to the island, exactly what's going on, we have a force main that connects the island to the mainland. That force main is what carries the wastewater from the lift station 10 when it's pumped into the mainland. Right now, that particular piece of infrastructure, the pipe, rests on the bottom of the Lake Worth Lagoon. In other communities throughout the country, this is common when the infrastructure is aged. In the best case scenario, that pipe should have been buried underneath the ground, because our concern is that if a captain drags anchor and clips that, then you have a major environmental issue. And the other side of it is there is no redundant system to move wastewater off the island. So there's a major concern for us. We are in the process of working with representatives in our state legislature to see about budget appropriation. We are, from the city staff standpoint, moving forward with going through the process for permitting, design, and engineering to be able to construct another force main, then take the existing force main, take that out of service, then make the appropriate improvements, and then bury the line, and then have a redundant system. The water mains that we have two water mains that actually connect the mainland to the island. We're looking to put in another one for the purposes of having redundancy and then being able to make improvements to the line. Most of our infrastructure throughout the city is aged infrastructure. I like to tell folks when they ask me the question, I said we ate off the dessert tray a little bit too much, and we didn't eat enough of our meat, potatoes, and vegetables. And so we have the fortunate opportunity to address all those challenges here as quickly as we possibly can. The number one priority for the city council is our water and wastewater infrastructure. And I'm certain when we get into the presentation, you'll hear a little bit more about the vision that we have to address those issues. But one of the things that I can tell you that keeps me up at night is that piece of infrastructure that sits on the bottom of the Lake Worth Lagoon. And especially, we have a pristine estuary here that is unmatched to a lot of other places in the world. We have to do everything to protect and preserve our water body. So that piece of infrastructure is something that is a critical piece of infrastructure. And we as a city, unfortunately, cannot shut it down to inspect the line. And obviously it's underwater, so then you have the issues with saltwater erosion and all those different things. So that's a priority for us moving forward. Ms. Jacobs and her team have done exceptional work going out and trying to get grant monies and appropriations as much as we possibly can. But when you have the situation like Fort Lauderdale, then everybody looks at what are we doing to ensure that this doesn't happen to us. So that is something that is on the minds of administration and staff every day. And we know that we may look to go ahead and construct a new water treatment plant, but then we know we have all that infrastructure that's underground. So as we go through our road projects, looking to replace that infrastructure to be able to provide the basic necessities, something, a commodity that we produce that you deal with every day. And so that's a major initiative for us moving forward.
Oh, what a good idea, Susan. Thank you. Thank you. I see
Yes.
Rabbi Namdar coming in. I know you've been here. Thank you, Rabbi, for coming.
On that body of water about not dropping anchor. I understand your concern, but are there warnings there to the boating community?
With the, you know, you're supposed to, most boaters that navigate that channel understand where they're supposed to be. And so I don't know if there's places where obviously there's markers where they shouldn't be. And so, but there's not something that says, hey, there's a pipe that's laying here on the, yeah. Yeah.
Have you looked into that in the meantime until we?
Yeah, that's something that we can certainly look at because, you know, we can definitely work with our federal partners, and I'm sure they won't have any issues with regards to notification or letting people know that, yes, we do have a critical piece of infrastructure. The other side of it is if somebody knows you have that piece of infrastructure, a lot of the things that we have on the water and wastewater side, we're governed by Chapter 119, Government in the Sunshine, so we have to give information if the public requests it. But some of the utility infrastructure and where critical components are, we're exempt from telling people where some of those pieces are in the event of an attack or anything. So we got to be.
But I mean, if you can have signs on the water that say no wake zone,
Yeah.
why can't there be something like no anchors dropped?
Yeah,
without saying why?
Yeah, we can look at seeing creative way to put some
Just so you
notification.
solve the
So
anchor issue.
yeah, we had a question here, and then we'll go here. Yes, ma'am. Oh.
The question is, where does the underwater pipe run?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like in an angle from Lift Station 10, I believe, yeah. So, from where?
Actually, we're in the planning stages right now. We have a consultant that we're working with that's helping us to assess the, I guess, the intricacies that deal with that particular project. And until we can do that, and the monies are there because we have bond monies that are set aside for that project. But right now, we're in the process of working with an engineer to just determine what's actually going on with the piping.
Yeah, because you imagine that there's so many regulatory agencies that we have to go through, but the great thing is that the funding is there, so that won't be an issue for us to move forward with the project. Yes.
Hi, Deirdre. I have a question. I might have two. I'm not sure yet. You all discussed the different types of water plants that you might utilize, and then also that there's a possible restriction on the amount of water from whatever source. So is any of that based on land mass or population?
So I'll talk about the consumptive use permit. We as a city and all cities that extract water from the ground, the superficial water, which is about 150 to maybe 100 feet down, you have a consumptive use permit. So every city is allowed to pull out X amount of million gallons a day to be able to provide a water supply to their community. That consumptive use permit is regulated by the water management districts. We pull and treat about 9.8 million gallons per day, and our plant has the capacity to be able to handle well over 17 to 19 million in between of that. But what happens now is that all these communities, I call them, they have their straw in the ground. So all these communities invariably are pulling out capacity, and obviously Florida being the state that it is, many people are moving here. There's a big shortage that they're predicting over the next 25 years that we're going to be hundreds of millions of gallons short statewide. So now what is happening, that if you are going to go and you want to be able to address the future capacity needs as the community grows, you have to go into the Florida aquifer, which is well over 12 to 1,500 feet down that you have to bore, and it's brackish water. So then you have to extract that water, blend it with the water that you go ahead and pull from the superficial water supply, and then run it through the membrane technology. Now, if we were to go to the water management district and say, we need to pull more water because we're anticipating growth, they're going to say, Riviera Beach, you're going to have to find an alternative water supply, because they're really being conscientious of the amount of folks that are moving in the area. So that's why when we talk about the technology that we're looking and the approach that we're taking, we're looking at drilling new wells, and those wells are pretty expensive, and there has to be some exploratory drilling that's done. The permitting process alone, and we're going to do a lot of that concurrently, but the permitting process in its entirety is about 5 years. So you're dealing with all these regulatory agencies. We anticipate, in the best case scenario, our water plant has anywhere from 5 to 10 years left as far as useful life. It's at the end of its useful life. It's a very archaic system. We utilize lime softening to treat the water. That's why you get that green or yellowish tinge. But it's something that we want to be able to produce a superior product and make sure that it's up to standards what our other government entities are doing. So long story short is that we've got to find an alternative water supply source if we're going to grow. If we don't find an alternative water supply source, the regulatory agencies can put a halt on redevelopment in the community until you address the alternative water supply, and they will put you under a consent decree, and then they will either come in and do the work or make you do the work within a certain time frame.
I have a question. Why don't we put a moratorium on building right now while all this is going on? You're talking about water shortage, bad water, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, and somebody else is speaking about building, and we have two very large buildings that people aren't even in yet. And you think every time a toilet is flushed, every time a sink is turned on, every time, why are we building? We're not, right now we have to stop building.
Well,
just to, why don't we bring in some stores and some place to go and some place to do something rather than high rises with people coming and going, and just put a stop on it for a period of time?
You know, private property owners have rights, and there's certain things that we as government entities cannot do, and we cannot really regulate private property owners' rights that they have by law to be able to do so. But I can tell you that every time these types of developments come online, there has to be an analysis as far as the city's ability to serve. So in the event that we cannot provide a reliable potable water supply, or we can't treat or we can't handle the wastewater, then that in fact is a de facto moratorium. But we have the capacity. We need to improve our product, but the capacity at the plant, we currently have that. So that's why you're still seeing growth and development and redevelopment occur. And the challenge that we have, if we stop growth and development in our community, then we never see some of the challenges that we have end up going away, because when you look at Palm Beach Gardens, $3 billion of economic growth, West Palm, $3 billion of economic growth, we're right in between those communities, and there's an opportunity for a lot of revitalization and a lot of redevelopment, which you're hearing. But in order to get those restaurants and those shops, you need higher per capita personal income, and you need densities and intensity. You need people, because those businesses are going to want to have people that can walk to their shops or their restaurants and those types of things. So there's a whole bunch of other factors that we look in, but we're making sure that we have the ability to provide the supply for the demand.
And if I could add on to that, ma'am, a lot of that deals with what's called concurrency standards. And whenever developments come to the city and they want to take place here in the city of Riviera Beach, there's nobody here from our planning staff, but they would tell you, in particular our permitting staff, that before any of that development is allowed, there are concurrency standards that have to be met because it not only deals with water, but it deals with other issues like our public safety services, transportation services as well. So as far as they meet concurrency standards, then really we're in line with being able to provide those sufficient services.
And Ms. Jacobs, if I may, correct me if I'm wrong, if they meet concurrency by law, you have to grant them the ability if they meet,
Yes,
if you
sir.
have the ability, if you have the capacity and they meet the concurrency requirements, that's how the state has said, you have to let them do what they're asking to do if they meet all the concurrency demands.
And then as well, I'm sorry, Dr. Botel, our utility special district, there are some that are more sophisticated than we are. We haven't reached this particular point in time though, but I've learned that a lot of utility districts, they have staff that deals with conservation activities, wherein they only concentrate, those particular staff persons, on ways to conserve water. So that we're hopeful within our next budget cycle that we'll actually be able to put different activities and persons in a place that can deal with conservation that'll help us out with regards to our water, our ability to produce quality or sufficient water as well.
I want to thank them so much for coming to speak to us tonight about the new water plant. Thank you very much. I broke my rule about saving questions until the end because Mr. Sprague has just gotten here and I was really killing time. So now that we have John Sprague with us, we can have a conversation about the marina, the managed mooring fields, derelict boats, and all such things marine.
Thank you. Apologize for being late. I got sidetracked on the computer and lost track of time. All right, so let's go to the marina. I'm glad to announce this week, as part of the redevelopment, we just finished Dock F. All the float, big concrete floats are in place. We're working on the utilities, and that's located in the very northeast corner of the marina. We're now going to concentrate on the south end, which will redo the last section of the old part at the south end. And that will complete the marina with about 144 slips when we get done. And we will have about 3,000 feet of marginal dockage, and we'll be able to take boats up to 300 feet in length. The nice thing about the big marginal slips is that you can put 15, 25 footers in tonight for a restaurant, and you can have a 250 footer there tomorrow. It's not like having slips that you can't rent because that size boat's not coming in today. So the marina's coming fine. It's a permitting nightmare, but we're getting through it. We've got some dredging that we've got to do, which will couple onto what the ICW dredge so those big vessels can come in. That's the final step in being able to take those large boats. When we get done, I think we're going to have the best marina in Palm Beach County. I mean, it's got 483 phase power. It's got pump out in every slip. So now let me move to the mooring field and all the areas that surround the city. I grew up in this city. Viking, where they're at now, is my old facility. I sold to them in 1999. So I grew up here and watched our waterfront change over the years. Not to the better, I might add, but I was out on a survey boat last week looking at 3 areas of possible mooring fields. Let me explain to you what a managed mooring field is. Anchoring, which normally you go out on the weekend or whatever, and you drop your anchor line and whatever, and you enjoy yourself, whatever that endeavor is. A mooring is a helix that's put into the ground, and they're designed for the size boat that you're going to use. They used to use ropes years ago. We have what I call rubber bands. They're flexible, they stretch, and they're designed for certain weight boats plus hurricanes. So we're going to look at putting a mooring field in that those moorings will survive in hurricanes. If we look at Stewart that went through those, we kind of determined the boats that failed on those moorings, and there weren't very many, was because anchored out boats drug down on them and they wouldn't take the load of 2 boats. In that survey, south of the turning basin between 45th Street and the port, there's about 104 boats on anchor last week. On the west side of Riviera mainland, between Blue Heron Bridge and our city marina, there was 26 boats. in 3 areas. And then Phil Foster, I think there was 17, but that comes and goes quite. And also, I think there was some initiative by our police department, along with others, to get some of the real derelict boats cleaned out. Clean water, we don't have a pump out boat in Palm Beach County, which I can't believe. I mean, it's anybody that anchors out or whatever, even Peanut Island. You know, to me, Parks Department should have a floating restroom. They can tow to Peanut Island on a weekend, and everybody enjoying that in their center console boats have a place to go. And then they tow it back, and the pump out boat, which is going to be part of our mooring fields, and maybe 2, can also pump that out. In addition, in the mooring field, we're intending to put in floating restrooms. And what that means, when you're cruising through or whatever, and you tie up in your mooring, which you're going to be able to do electronically, you're going to be able to pick your buoy. Each mooring is designed for a certain diameter circle for the length of the boat, so if they go in opposite directions, they don't hit one another. And on that app, you can register, you'll be able to pay. You can pick what buoy you want. If it's open, it's going to tell you if it's open. And then, of course, we do pump out the boat as well. So we think we're working on parking. Parking can be one of our issues that we're looking at. But I'm working with Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, and we've got some ideas to do with that, and there's a meeting next week on that. So parking is one of the big issues. People need publics, they need cruising boats, use everything that you and I do in a home when we're traveling. We need a doctor, we need food to eat every night, we have dentists, we have all those things. So if the more of those boats that come to our areas, it's like coming to a hotel, but it's even more, is the amenities and the support that they do for our business community. And of course, clean water. And you know, our water is not real good. So there is fortunately a big initiative in the state. There's several bills going through right now having to do with clean water. But you know, everybody needs to pump out. We need to supply that to the area. In some conversations up in Old Port Cove area up in there, there's another possibility for a mooring field up there. And what it is, if we can put enough of them in, and we don't need great big ones everywhere, but what we do need them is conveniently put where boats are utilized, and secondly is that we don't charge an arm and a leg. To give you an idea, a boat slip, like the city marine that we're building, are about $100,000 a slip. Partially because electric and concrete, we're building them for a Cat 3 hurricane loaded. A mooring is only $3,500. So if you look at the inexpensive of that, we're hoping that most of the boats that are not derelict or at risk will pay and come off of anchor and go onto the mooring field. So we can service them. Some of the mooring fields that we have around the country can actually order pizzas and have them delivered to the boat. They have shuttle boats that actually will pick you up. You just pick up the mic. They come and get you. We'll arrange with Uber, maybe bike ride that we can share with the downtown as we get more development downtown. So anyway, we're working on that. The permit process. I've got the seagrass survey to do next. I'm working on, when we ran the survey last week, basically what the boat does is that we run the circle where we believe this mooring field ought to be put in generalized. And then we run the survey boat back and forth, and it does all the bathymetric water depths back and forth, and then graphs the whole area. So we know what size boats based on their draft can go where, and then we can lay the field out, and the engineers are working on that now. Do I have any else?
I know we're going to have questions about this. I want to say that one of the reasons we started to think about having a managed mooring field, excuse me, is that under our bridge, under our Blue Heron Bridge, we have an internationally known dive site. People come from all over the world. And yet, right by that bridge, we have people who do not pump out their boats. They dump their stuff into the water there. And we cannot allow that water to be destroyed, that area to be destroyed. It's sacrosanct. So we've been talking with John about this for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years now, to say what can we do to get rid of some of those derelict boats. And I will say that finally the city of Riviera Beach has gone back to tagging the derelict boats. I don't know how many we've tagged. I'd have to check with the police 17. They were out there, just sitting out there, not doing anybody any good. And yes, right, Mayor Myra is happy about that as well. People in both Palm Beach Shores and those of our neighbors who live along the coastline there look out at those derelict boats, and in a hurricane they become unguided missiles that crash into their front yard. So this business of controlling the derelict boats is another good reason for having a managed mooring field, because good boat owners will take advantage of this, and we can more easily police the boats that are left there. In addition to, just one more, in addition to looking at the issue of the submerged lands, the reason we did the moratorium that you may have remembered we did on development in the submerged lands was to take a look at floating homes and what the city is going to be doing about floating homes and how we can prevent those things from invading our environment. So that's another thing. We are developing a policy to prevent the floating. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit, but we're developing a policy to prohibit the use of to prohibit floating homes from becoming rampant over there. So questions, boy. We are not going to.
I will tell you, FWC has agreed to do a bill next year. We've been working on them for about 4 years to do a comprehensive bill to figure out what we would do with the derelict vessels. I believe one of those is going to be a program where they can voluntarily turn the boat in and we'll destroy it. Part of the problem is that they sell these boats over and over on the back of a napkin. And you can't even find out who owns them. There's some of them, they rent them. I mean, it's a perpetual problem, and there's laws on how fast the city can do it. What do we do with the boats until we can get a judge and go through all the process? If they sink, meanwhile, it costs 10 times more to get rid of the boat. State of Washington actually started that. I think that's the only state right now that has it. But we can get rid of them pretty cheap when they're still afloat. And that may be one of the tools that we use. But we are going to work from an industry perspective on a comprehensive bill next year to try and make the mooring field process cheaper. You have no seagrass damage. It's a plus on that. We collect their garbage, we collect their sewers, and at the same time get rid of all these boats that are the real problem. And as you well know, waterfront homeowners, hurricanes, we wind up with them all in our front yards.
Is there a field scheduled for north of Blue Heron Bridge?
Bill Foster, I'm looking at Bill Foster, the west side, west of the ICW, along between. I've had a couple conversations all the way up in Old Port Cove area and the possibility of that. The county looked at that, but they were going to fill it. Got everybody up in arms and whatever, but to look at it as a mooring field because there's a bunch of them up there as well. And then part of this is to work with this comprehensively, West Palm, Palm Beach Shores, Riviera Beach, Lake Park, because what we don't want to do is shift the problem to the next community next door. And that's part of not having a comprehensive plan that if they're going to move, go somewhere far away.
Well, I agree with you. The state needs to do something about the derelict boats, but I can guarantee you that 70 to 80% of the boats out there, a lot of them are derelict, but a lot of them are people that have dropped the hook, they live on the boats, and they've been there for 2 or more years.
Correct.
And, it's like parking your car on the side of a road, just living in your car, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's a public road. And if they do a mooring field, can you force people to use the mooring field?
Generally what happens with mooring fields, we try and do a balance. Part of the study of the mooring field, let's find out how many people live on their boats all year round. How many boats come here in the season and they're on the boats? How many people stop through for a week, 10 days, or whatever that is? How many people store their boats? And to give you an example, the problem with dockage is when it costs you $100,000 to build a slip, the guy with the 28-foot 1968 Pearson 30 cannot afford dockage. And yet he takes care of his boat, it's registered, it's insured and whatever, but he can't afford $1,000. Perfect place to put that stored boat. It's registered, it takes care of it, whatever. There are rights of navigation that go back, I remember a long time before we had cars, roads, and whatever. There are rights of navigation. I mean, I'm a waterfront homeowner too, and I think it's how close they get to our homes, and where they go and where they put their dinghy and where they hang their laundry up, and that's one of the good things of a mooring field, because you can have a set of rules and regulations just like a marina. So therefore, the riprap, and then you very carefully put the mooring field in, and we're also going to work on setbacks from the mooring field, which will also protect our coastline if we carefully design the mooring fields. Pardon?
The question was, who monitors all
We're-
these fields?
The primary operation will be out of the pump-out boats. Why? Because they're going to be going through the mooring field every single day. There's actually a pennant that we use in the state of Florida that we give away. You can put it on your boat, and if you need a pump-out, you hoist it. So the pump-out boat knows exactly, based on the pennants, you need a pump-out, even if you're anchored out. I mean, we're going to pump everybody, whether on anchor or whatever. It's part of the program, Clean Vessel Act. They'll help with the grant funding, just like we'll get other grants to build the mooring field. But it's basically looked after law enforcement. This is a coordination between the operation of the mooring field, the pump out program, which travels all over, and law enforcement.
That would be conservation police, right?
FWC and local. Palm Beach has got it. Riviera's
Yeah,
got it.
we have a marine
There's a
unit.
number of marine units in this county. I'm hoping to start the permitting process probably around June. I hope that, because we don't affect seagrass, and we're reducing anchoring damage and whatever, but I still got to get through the process with National Marine Fisheries, which is not easy. The grant cycles for it would be March of next year. So I'm hoping we will actually construct October of 21.
We run about a 3 to 3.5 foot tide situation. And so the moorings have to be placed in a position that's not going to be affected by the tide.
That's why we do a bathymetric study that we did last week. We've got all the water depths throughout all 3 areas that we're planning on, possibly the locations of what the mooring fields will look like. So we know exactly, based on the draft of the boat, length of the boat, and what we have there, and those buoys will be designed. So you can go on and look at buoy 28, and it'll tell you at low tide that you got 7 feet of water. You can have a maximum size 40 foot or whatever it happens to be on that particular, so you can help pick out your buoy when you're looking at it. Our Marina depths generally, without getting into the real big boats, are generally around 8 feet at mean low water. The big boats require about 15 feet of dead low water, depending upon the size. But the 250s, 275s, they're going to require that. Rivovich has got that, but also we dug the ICW in front of the Riviera Beach Marina to that depth. So all we have to worry about is the actual dredging inside.
Yeah, just real quick, I think it's an awesome idea. I heard a while back, Martin County, they had gone out and put dye packs in, made everybody flush, and if they had any dye come out, they were citing them. Is that a possibility? The one guy that sits right here at the bridge, that's been here for a year.
The problem is, and I'm only speaking for the industry, it turns us into policemen. There's a lot of pushback with that. The dye pack, the boats that intend to pump sewage that don't have pump outs in the marinas. And we all know that some marinas, the boats never seem to leave the slip. They party on the weekends and they don't seem to go out, which is why the Riviera City Marina, we've got to pump out at every slip. You do not have to take the boat out to pump it out. But the dye packs, they're going to discharge at night. And you can flush that holding tank and it just...
I thought what they did is they came up to them when they were on the boat and told them to go flush it. And when they flushed, if anything came out around the boat, then they decided they know they're dumping.
On the other hand, if we've got mooring fields with pump outs and whatever, we prefer that the systems are locked so you can't discharge if you want to. We've seen boats that are double valved. I mean, it's like everything else. There's a way to get around the system. Yeah.
So the
Correct. Correct.
Certain amount of flares, I have to comply 100%. But I can promise you, not one of these boats out here can comply. So if we have someone that was checking these boats on a monthly basis, weekly basis, yearly basis for that matter, they'd all be gone and impounded. And so the other thing is, you're absolutely not correct on the dye thing. Because I can tell you right now, I've owned many boats, some as big as 60 feet. And if I'm stopped by the U.S. Coast Guard and they put a dye, and I have multiple backup systems for that, it'll fail every time it proves that I'm not complying. So if they are not pumping, if they're pumping out overboard, which we all know they're doing, if someone were to cite them properly, they would be all fine. I'm a yacht broker, so I do know these.
If we had sufficient law enforcement on the water, that might work.
Well,
I can tell you right now, that's a very big problem. We are on FWC on a constant basis. But like all law enforcement, they are stretched to the limits. Life safety is their most important. They got to try and catch the people.
In Miami, they have mooring fields, and believe me, if you do something wrong, you are cited, you have a huge fine, not a $100 fine, not a $50 fine, but like a $5,000 fine.
Well, it's certainly something that we'll ask our new police chief to look at, because we do have a Marine unit, and even though FWC is stretched, we may not be. I want to just say thank you to Mr. Sprague again for spending some time with us to explain the managed mooring field. It's still very warm in here, so I'm going to say thank you all for coming. I'm going to add one last final thing, and I'm going to ask J.B. Dixon to come up and tell you the last word about the community garden. Come on, J.B., come entice people to come. Susan, did you have one question? One, all right, I'll take 2 or 3 Q&As, just because it's
Okay, go ahead.
Well, we just had a question about the submerged lands. I know you can't talk about it. I know Mr. Evans talked about the Lake Worth Lagoon. I happen to live right across from where this person has built a fence. Just a minute, I'm sorry, Dr. Botel, but he's destroying mangroves and everything else along the way. Why isn't something being done? I know you tell me something is being done, and you can't talk about it, but that is a disgrace.
I would like to have a meeting after the meeting, and those of you who would like to sit with me for just a few minutes when the cameras are off in a minute, then we'll have that conversation. Okay. It will. Okay. Okay. It's because we're being careful. Yeah, Mr.
Julie, just one quick thing, since I got the water guy here. A couple of years ago, we had 22 of maybe the 28 wells working, pumped. How many are up and running now?
We have 22 wells operating now, and that's an ongoing process. We repair, we repair, and as we repairing some, sometimes we lose some other ones, but we have 22 operating right now.
If I may, a year ago, there was 9 that were operational, and then we brought 22 back online. So we've made incremental progress. Obviously, we know that there's still some more work to do. The health department was actually surprised when we cited that information, but originally we went from 9 a year ago to now 22.
I am going to ask Mr. Mike to come up here and say a little bit about the community survey.
Real quick, the community value survey. If you live in a condo, you probably don't know about it because condos don't get water bills. Goes to the association. I found out about this about 4 days ago. COSA is going to send out a thing to all of your board members to try and get it out there. It's an easy test. You can't flunk this test. It's easy. It's good questions. You got to think about it, but it's valuable to the community. So please try and do it.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for doing that. My name is Marcia Noel. I am the assistant to the city manager. I've been on the job for about 4 months now, so I'm fairly new to the community. And just to touch on something that you brought up, which is the community values survey, that has been a project of mine through the city manager in terms of how we can better connect and engage with our community to obtain valuable information from you. I've had the opportunity prior to my time here with Riviera Beach to work for the city of Fort Lauderdale. A lot of what I did centered around community engagement, because when it comes to local government, we tend to struggle with connecting with the community and hearing from you as to what your concerns are, especially from a larger, more aggregate perspective. And so if you have, and just to get a sense of how many people have actually taken the survey, if you have, can you raise your hand? Okay, you see, so good for those who have. If you haven't, the survey is still available. I know that it was probably touched upon prior to my arrival to the meeting, so I apologize I couldn't make it earlier to speak on this, but the community values survey is central to what we're trying to do in terms of gauging your perspective, your sentiments towards the city services, its functions, and the long-term outlook of our community. And so, so if you want to connect, if you want to do the survey, we do have an online survey through SurveyMonkey. You can, through your phone, tablet, laptop, you can go to surveymonkey.com/r/Riviera Beach. Now, if there is a listserv with, I'm not sure how anyone got communicated with here.
I will ask Sammy to send the link to the survey to everybody who came this evening. Okay, great. Now, thank you. There's information at the back of the handout. Thank you, Sammy, as always, on top of it. One or two last questions, and then I'm going to have the meeting after the meeting. I promise.
I thought it was very nice that the Palm Beach Post covered our mural, and the new mural right here off of Blue Heron. But I would just like to know if someone from the city can intercede with the gas station to do something about that light, because when you leave here tonight and you drive that way, you cannot see it. The light, there's a very bright light that totally blocks your ability to see any aspect of that mural. Has anybody else noticed that? Yeah, they should do something. But you can't see it at night at all, and it's too beautiful not to be recognized both day and night.
Just before you go, I would really like to invite all of you to come to a meeting next Tuesday here about the Singer Island Community Garden. You know, often with murals and other things, we have these meetings, people do not come, then when the thing is done, they want to express an opinion. Now is the time to express an opinion. You're going to see some beautiful renderings, which we've had a variety of public meetings, and the public has had input. It's not too late, you know, to make some minor changes. And we'd like you to see what you're going to be seeing. It's going to greatly improve the entrance to Singer Island. Part of it will be a park-like setting along Blue Heron, and in the back will be the raised beds. You'll find out how you can garden there, and how you can make memorial gifts, perhaps, to loved ones who've passed away, or have your condominium recognized or your business recognized. So all of that will be next Tuesday. We hope to see you then.
I want to thank everyone again for coming this evening. If you're interested in the meeting after the meeting, I'll be here as long as you like this evening. Please take some food with you, because we've got plenty of it left, and we don't want to have it go to waste. Thank you so much. My next quarterly town hall meeting will be 2 months from now rather than 3. This would have taken place in January, but for personal circumstances, so it's February, but our next one, April. Am I right? April. April, the 3rd Thursday of the month is when I do them on a quarterly basis. Thank you so much for being here, and please feel free to stay if you'd like to. Thank you. Come on up here, we'll chat.
I was going to volunteer